I killed the only man I ever loved. He ruled an empire. I was the empress it erased. Alexander. We grew up side by side, betrothed before we even understood love or power. What began as devotion ended in blood, when love became treason, and survival came at a price. My name is Chloe. I entered the palace when I was 8 and stayed at my aunt's side. Back then, my aunt was the empress. Alexander Chen was the crown prince. He called her Mother Empress. Alexander Chen's birth mother had died very early on. My aunt pitied him, so she took him in and raised him herself. My aunt said I was Alexander Chen's child bride, and that one day I would become empress. I asked her, "Is being empress fun?" She said, "As empress, you can eat whatever you want and play whatever you want." I was tempted. Just then, Alexander Chen arrived. That was the first time I ever saw him. It was the kind of day when the snow had melted and spring had warmed the air. It was as if he stepped in wrapped in sunlight. He looked so clean. His face was pale, paler than rice paper. His eyes were so dark, like they'd been steeped in huisho ink. His lips looked soft, still moist. A strand of hair refused to lie flat, sticking up on its own. He glanced at me. A bright glint flashed in those dark eyes. How could anyone be that beautiful? I buried my face in my aunt's sleeve. My aunt burst into laughter. Taking my hand, she asked him, "Alex, would you like Coco to be your crown princess?" He said, "Whatever Mother Empress decides." I don't know why, but I felt as though he wasn't happy. And yet when I peeked at him, he was smiling at my aunt. He should have been happy. I was completely won over. I wanted to be empress, Alexander Chen's empress. My aunt reached out to tease me and said, laughing, "Coco, remember this. From now on, Alex is your husband." My face burned red, but my shyness lasted only a moment. I ran up to him and smoothed down that stubborn strand of hair. He looked stunned. After that, I followed Alexander Chen everywhere. At first, he barely spoke, mostly ignoring me. Later, little by little, he began to talk to me. Once, he came down with a raging fever, so delirious he couldn't think straight. He kept calling for his mother. His brows were drawn tight, like little mountains. He cried. Tears soaked his face. My heart ached. I carefully wiped them away. I soothed him the way my own mother soothed me. "Alex, don't cry. Coco will kiss you. Coco will make it better." I stole a kiss from him. He stopped crying. He reached out his little finger and gently hooked it around mine. Another time, it seemed he'd done something wrong. I didn't even know what it was. My uncle punished him by making him kneel outside the gate. The sun blazed overhead. The green bricks were so hot they seemed to smoke. I begged my uncle and aunt, but they said, "Coco, you don't understand. Stay out of it." All I could do was hold an umbrella over him. But the palace servants watching us snatched it away. So I knelt with him. He had already been kneeling for a long time. His back was soaked through. Even his thick lashes were damp with sweat. He looked awful, his face tinged bluish, his lips gone pale. He nearly lost his balance and collapsed onto the scorching bricks. I caught him and burst into loud sobs. Why were my uncle and aunt so cruel? Why did they bully Alex? I felt so useless. He braced one hand against the ground and forced himself upright. Then he comforted me instead. "Coco, don't cry." He reached out and wiped my tears away. His hand was burning, like red-hot iron. My tears wouldn't stop. He coaxed me again. "Coco, Southport sent lychees. They've already been chilled. Go eat some first, okay?" I refused. Southport's iced lychees were nothing compared to him. I stayed kneeling with him, and we fainted together. Afterward, he gave all the Southport iced lychees to me alone. He didn't even give any to Bianca Bai. Bianca Bai was Tutor Bai's daughter. She had known Alexander Chen even earlier than I had. They were very close. Once we sneaked out of the palace to have some fun. We ran into assassins, a sword thrust straight at me. Alexander Chen shoved me aside and took the blow for me. An everlasting scar was left over his heart. I owed him. He kissed me on the day I first started bleeding. We were at Southridge Academy then, listening to lectures. Suddenly my stomach started to hurt. After the teacher finished, everyone packed up and left. I touched the bench. My fingers came away smeared with blood. I sat there, afraid to move. Everyone else had gone. Only Alexander Chen and I were left. That day, his movements were slower than usual. He carried his books toward the door, then stopped at the threshold. He turned back and looked at me. I cried, "Alex, I'm going to die. I'm bleeding so much." His face went white in an instant. The books in his arms fell to the ground. He rushed to me in a panic. He kicked the leg of a desk, but he didn't cry out. He never cried out in pain. He wiped the bench I'd been sitting on. His fingertip came back covered in blood too. He asked me where it hurt. I couldn't even think about where it hurt. All I could think was that I was dying, and I couldn't accept it. I still hadn't become his empress. I sobbed, "Alex, I'm going to die. Kiss me, please." He held me tight, as if he wanted to press me into his body. His lips trembled as he kissed away my tears. He said, "Coco, I won't let you die." Then his lips, clumsy but gentle, covered mine. All at once, the pain was gone. His lips were so soft, so sweet. There was nothing in this world more gentle, more sweet than his lips. I wanted him to keep kissing me forever. He carried me on his back to see a doctor. When we learned the truth, we could only stare at each other. Alexander Chen's jade-white face flushed bright red, redder than the blood on my skirt. On the day I came of age, Julian Nan confessed to me. By Maple Lake, he had circled the lake ahead of time and lit 1,000 candles. Julian Nan was a liar. He told me to come for grilled fish. And when he invited me, he also invited Sophia Fu, Adrian Pai, and Lucas Gu. Alexander Chen and I were close with all 4 of them. Sophia Fu's family was among the richest merchant families in Xiling. Adrian Pai's father was an old general. Lucas Gu came from a poor family, but he was brilliantly gifted. Julian Nan had meant to invite Alexander Chen too, but he hadn't been at the academy these past few days. I never expected Julian Nan to pull something like this. The others had vanished, who knew where. I was annoyed. Julian Nan's confession was clever. He said his father was the left chancellor. My father was the right chancellor, so we were well matched. The only one well matched with me was Alexander Chen. I was about to turn Julian Nan down politely. Then I heard rapid hoofbeats. I turned, and not far away, Alexander Chen was on horseback, with Bianca Bai on the same horse. They were riding together. I'd thought he was drowning in state affairs. Turns out he still had time to accompany Bianca Bai. Alexander Chen looked at me. His gaze was cold. I looked back at him, and at Bianca Bai too. Her hand was clenched around Alexander Chen's sleeve. It was far too intimate. I had always known they were close. I just hadn't known they were close like this. Alexander Chen swung down from the saddle. Bianca Bai had never learned riding or archery. She trembled, not daring to dismount. Alexander Chen reached out to help her. She lost her balance and fell neatly into his arms. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. The grilled fish was done. I could smell it. I left them behind and went to eat. Julian Nan hurried after me, saying I still hadn't given him an answer. I blew on the scalding fish and brushed him off. Later, "I'm hungry." Alexander Chen suddenly tossed a piece of wood into the bonfire. It crackled loudly. Bianca Bai said, "Alex, I'm hungry too." She was talking to Alexander Chen. I couldn't help snapping. "Don't you have hands? There's cooked fish right there on the rack." Bianca Bai shot me an angry glare, then looked at Alexander Chen with a wounded expression. Bianca Bai and I never got along. Of course we didn't. I liked Alexander Chen. She liked him too. In public and in private, we were always at odds. Alexander Chen picked up a grilled fish for her. All at once, mine didn't taste good anymore. Tonight's fish tasted sour. I threw it away, mounted my horse, and rode off. I'd thought Alexander Chen's tenderness toward me was meant for me alone. It wasn't. I hated Alexander Chen. Alexander Chen had some nerve. He climbed in through my window and barged into my room. I was lying face down on the bed, crying. Through blurry tears, I saw the full round moon framed by the window he'd pushed open. And I saw him. I was furious. I turned my back to him. I didn't want to see him at all. I had already decided I would tell my aunt I wouldn't speak to Alexander Chen anymore. He was unbearable. He sighed softly, put a hand on my back, and patted me a few times. "Coco, crying on your birthday brings bad luck." I rolled over, grabbed his hand, and bit down hard on the back of it. "None of your business." He acted as if he couldn't feel pain, letting me bite him. I shoved his hand away with all my strength. "Alexander Chen, have you no shame?" He wouldn't let me push it away. Instead, he offered it to my mouth again. "Coco, bite me. Don't make yourself sick with anger." I was shaking with rage. Then, shamefully, my tears started falling again. "Alexander Chen, I hate you. I'm gonna tell my aunt I won't marry you." It went quiet. I stole a glance at him. The color drained from his face. It made his eyes look even darker, bottomless. Coco, don't joke about that. His voice was so cold it seemed to freeze the air. I lifted my chin and kept going. I'm not joking. He suddenly pinned me to the bed and held my shoulders down with both hands. He was very close. His expression was frightening. Alexander Chen, what are you doing? His sharp teeth caught my lower lip and worried at it again and again. It hurt. It hurt so much my tears fell again. In the end, the biting softened into a gentle kiss. With a bleak kind of pain, he said, Coco, don't give up on me. My heart softened. There was still a scar over his heart. I couldn't bear to abandon him. It turned out he'd prepared a birthday gift for me. A cherry blossom wooden hairpin, carved by his own hands. Alexander Chen grew busier and busier. My uncle gave him more and more responsibilities. More and more retainers gathered around him. My aunt said, Alex's wings are hardening. When she said it, her face was calm. She wasn't smiling. Alexander Chen was going to war. I didn't want him to go. I was afraid he'd be hurt. Even more, I was afraid he'd die. He was already crown prince. Whether he fought or not shouldn't have mattered at all. My aunt said he would become emperor. But Alexander Chen said he had to fight this war. He said if he lost, at worst he would die wrapped in a horsehide. But if he won, he could be crown prince openly and honorably. He could marry me openly and honorably. I looked at him, confused. I didn't understand. Wasn't he already open and honorable? He kissed my forehead and said nothing. I realized that whether it was him or my aunt, they always left things unsaid. So infuriating. On the day the army set out, I rode up into Qilin Mountain, crying as I secretly followed them for a long time, all the way until sunset. Then darkness fell. They made camp beside a river. Maybe that upright figure sitting by the river was Alexander Chen. Or maybe the figure drinking by the bonfire was Alexander Chen. They said Alexander Chen was dead. Dead at the border in Yuzhou, but he had clearly won. I had received his letters. He wrote, Coco, we won. I'm sitting by Amber River now, writing to you. The water is very clear. The clouds are reflected in it, drifting. By Amber River there are many bright red flowers. The locals call them dark cherry. I picked one. I'll bring it back for you. It was the longest, silliest letter Alexander Chen had ever written me. Before that, his letters were always, all is well, don't worry. Sometimes there wasn't even a sentence, just a handful of dried grass, a stone, a fistful of sand. When I received his last letter, my wedding dress was already finished. My eldest sister and second sister helped me embroider it. My eldest sister was gentle. My second sister had a sharp temper. Their mother was a concubine in the household. My mother was the main wife. We didn't share the same mother, but that never stopped them from loving me. Every day I counted on my fingers, calculating when Alexander Chen would return. I was waiting for him to come back so I could be his bride. But they said he was dead. Absurd. They hadn't even found his remains, and they said he was dead. They said he jumped into dangerous rapids to save a young woman and was swept away by the flood. They cleared everything out of the Eastern Palace and burned it in a great fire. They wanted to erase every trace that Alexander Chen had ever lived. I wouldn't let them. I spread my arms and stood in front of the flames. I couldn't let Alexander Chen think everyone had abandoned him. I was afraid that if no one remembered him, he wouldn't be able to find his way home. But I was still so useless. I couldn't protect everything he'd left behind. In the end, only one rosewood box from the Eastern Palace remained. Inside were many cherry blossom wooden hairpins. They were crudely made, nothing like the one he had given me. Eunuch Li, who had served him, said, "The crown prince carved hairpins himself. He failed many times." I held that small rosewood box and walked slowly through the heavy snow. At the time, I had still been angry with him. I thought he had forgotten my birthday. I thought he didn't care about me. My eyes felt dry and raw, aching from rubbing them. They were going to name a new crown prince. My uncle had 4 sons. 1 was gone. 3 remained. They chose Ethan Chen. Ethan Chen was pathetic, obsequious, timid as a mouse. He was terrible at studying, terrible at riding and archery. All he did was fool around with palace maids. No one knew how many maids he had gotten pregnant and how often it ended with them being beaten to death. But my aunt strongly recommended him. She said he was broad-minded and gentle and would become a benevolent ruler. Benevolent ruler, my ass. She had once said Alex could become a wise ruler for a generation. My aunt's memory was getting worse. She forgot. She even said, "Coco, would you be Ethan's empress? As empress, you can eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want." But what was the point? I wasn't that easily fooled child anymore. No one could coax me anymore. The only person in the world who could coax me, he was gone. I was so sad. So sad that I stood atop a high city tower. Cold snowflakes landed on my cheeks. I stretched one foot out into open air. If I jumped, could I see my Alex? Maybe he was still on the road to the underworld, not far along yet. Maybe he hadn't drunk the soup of oblivion. The snow fell harder and harder. I wondered where his remains lay frozen, buried under which mountain swept along which river. I didn't jump. I still hadn't seen the dark cherry flowers by Amber River. I was going to find Alexander Chen. I was going to bring him back to Shilling. Everyone else had abandoned him. I couldn't let his lonely spirit drift in foreign lands. Even now, I still haven't cried. Alexander Chen must not know how strong his Coco is. He doesn't know I only cry in front of him. I only wanted to trick him into comforting me, into loving me. They were busy discussing my marriage to Ethan Chen. I left home on a snowy night. When I reached the gate, the lantern light was dim and yellow. My eldest sister held a red lantern and frowned at me, her smoky brows drawn tight. My second sister folded her arms, kicked at the snow, leaned against the doorframe, and glared. My eldest sister was sure to nag me for ages with long speeches about what was proper. My second sister was sure to poke my forehead with a finger. But I was wrong. They handed me a bundle. Inside was the money they'd secretly saved over a long time. My eldest sister said Alexander Chen was a good boy. My second sister said Alex was a foolish kid. Both my sisters cared about Alex a lot. They'd always treated him like a real younger brother. In fact, my aunt, my father, and my eldest brother used to care about him too. But after Alexander Chen got busy, they liked him less and less. By the time he died, they'd forgotten him completely. I met Adrian Pai. Grief was written all over his face. He'd gone to war with Alexander Chen. He knew the truth. He said Alexander Chen jumped because Lucas Gu said the girl who fell into the water looked so much like Coco. Maybe someone had promised Lucas Gu a brilliant future. So Lucas Gu, gifted as he was, betrayed Alexander Chen, and Alexander Chen dove in headfirst. He was a complete idiot. I asked Adrian Pai, "Why did you come back alone?" Adrian said his father knocked him out. Adrian and I set out together to find Alexander Chen. We also ran into Sophia Fu, who'd run away from home. Sophia's stepmother bullied her, so she left. Sophia liked Adrian, so she came with us. Yuzhou had already been pacified. We ran into some refugees and bandits on the road. But it wasn't too much trouble. Sophia had money. Adrian could fight. And I'd stolen my father's token. Everything went smoothly. We reached Amber River. Cliffs rose on all sides. Tigers roared. Apes cried. When I read Alexander Chen's letters, I'd imagined Amber River would be gentle. It wasn't. I also saw the Xuanying flowers, red as evening clouds burning at sunset, so beautiful. I sat on a huge boulder and watched Amber River rush on, endless. Adrian said Alexander Chen had sat on this very boulder to write his letters. Adrian said he smiled as he wrote. As I listened to him remember, I tilted my face up to the sky. I couldn't cry. We searched along the riverbank. We passed many small towns and villages. We met all kinds of people. I carried Alexander Chen's portrait and asked everywhere. But people said, "Miss, if someone falls into the water, their face swells and rots. How could anyone recognize them? No matter what he became, he would still be the most beautiful person." We posted reward notices all along the river. Anyone who brought in an unclaimed body to report it would be paid. It was like searching for a needle in the sea, but it was the only way. Every day, someone summoned us to identify a body. Each time the news came, my hands and feet would go icy. Afraid it was him. Sophia's money was almost gone. My father sent people to drag me back. In the chaos, I fell down a mountainside. I got separated from Sophia and Adrian. When I woke up, I saw red dragonflies blanketing the hills. I'd fallen into a thicket. Wild thorns tore at me. My face hurt so badly it went numb. I touched my wet cheek. My hand came away slick with blood. I checked again. My arms and knees were scraped raw. Some thorns had sunk into my skin, oozing tiny beads of blood. If I didn't look, I didn't feel the pain. I pushed myself up on my arms. Then I heard voices outside the bushes. "Alex, go in there and catch me a red dragonfly, okay?" A few red dragonflies rested on the tips of the shrubs. Someone parted the brush in front of me. I looked up at the person who stepped in. His jade-white face was split by a deep, long scar, running from the tail of his left brow all the way to the corner of his left mouth. Savage, terrifying, but he was still Alex, the most beautiful person in the world. No matter what he became, I would know him. He saw me. Those pitch-black eyes stared at me in blank confusion. That unruly strand of hair still stuck up, defiant as ever. He didn't recognize me. He only glanced at me, then went to catch dragonflies. He snatched one from the treetop and called out to the girl outside. "Iris, I got it." Then he turned to leave. I called after him in a daze. "Alex?" My voice was hoarse. It sounded awful. He stopped and looked back. He stared at me. Confusion flickered in his eyes. The girl outside called him a few times, but he didn't answer. She ran in. When she saw me, she panicked. She looked somewhat like me. She gripped Alexander Chen's hand tightly and dragged him out. She said, "Alex, don't talk to strangers." Alexander Chen listened to her. They left. I wanted so badly to chase him, but when I tried to stand, I realized I'd twisted my ankle. I staggered after them a few steps. Then I fell again. And suddenly, the pain hit. The sky dimmed all at once. The red dragonflies flew low. Rain was coming. I dragged myself up again, a mess, braced on my hands. I still had to follow him. Purple-blue lightning split the sky. Thunder from the horizon lashed the rolling storm clouds. Flocks of cold crows beat their wings in wild panic. A downpour was on its way. I grabbed a branch for a cane and limped through the wilderness. But I was too slow. The rain caught me anyway. I gave up. I flung the branch aside, sank to the ground, and sobbed. I couldn't tell rain from tears. I thought this storm would ruin me. It didn't. An umbrella lowered over my head. Alexander Chen came back. He lifted me onto his back and carried me out of the drenched wilderness. His shoulder was so warm, so steady. I rested my face against it. I stopped crying. And I even reached up in secret and smoothed down that stubborn tuft of hair. I thought Alexander Chen remembered. He didn't. He'd only shown kindness to a stranger. But it didn't matter. I was with him again. He took me back to where he lived now. A small wooden cabin beside a stream, neat, clean. He gave me a clean set of clothes to change into. They were his. His clothes held a quiet, gentle scent. The moment I put them on, it felt like he was holding me. The pain in my body and my heart eased all at once. I came out after changing, holding my collar closed with both hands. His clothes were a little too big. When he saw me, his gaze darkened. He looked away quickly. He handed me medicine and a needle. He said men and women shouldn't touch, and told me to pull out the thorns and apply the medicine myself. He didn't remember me. Fine. As long as he was alive, nothing was too hard anymore. We could fall in love again. I pulled out one thorn, and tears started pouring down. I did it on purpose. It didn't hurt at all. But I rubbed at my tears, looking wronged, right in front of him. He couldn't stand it. He snatched the needle from my hand, sat on the edge of the bed, and focused on picking out the thorns for me. When he concentrated, his lips pressed into a tight line. His brows drew together, too. Those black eyes held a watery sheen, as if it might ripple. I watched him, greedy for the sight of him. I reached out and touched the scar on his left cheek. It had already healed over. When it first happened, it must have hurt terribly. I could almost picture torn flesh. He jerked like I'd burned him. He reacted violently, scrambling to his feet and stumbling back a few steps. I looked at him, confused. He covered his left cheek and turned away. His shoulders seemed to tremble, and his voice trembled too, restrained and tight. "Sorry I scared you." I almost let my voice break, but he needed comforting right now, so I smiled and spoke lightly as if it were nothing. "No, this scar looks very manly." His tense shoulders seemed to loosen. I wanted to reach out and take his hand. But Iris came in with ginger soup. She asked Alexander Chen to go to her place to help chop firewood. Right? I'd forgotten what she and Alexander Chen were to each other now. Alexander Chen left. She sat to one side, cooling the medicine with a spoon, and asked me cautiously, "What's your name? Where are you from? What are you doing here?" Of course I didn't tell her the truth. Adrian had said Alexander Chen jumped into the river for a girl. I guessed that girl was Iris. She had stolen my Alex. How had she done it? I kept my expression calm. I lied and said, "Everyone calls me Little Sis." My family does business. I came to Yuzhou to buy goods. The mountain path was slippery and I fell. I got separated from my companions. I also asked what she was to him. She looked at me, wary. She said they'd grown up together and they were lovers. She really was something. I asked her, "Then are you married?" She stammered, "Soon." Soon meant not yet. There was still time. Time to set things right. At dusk, Alexander Chen kept glancing at the basin of dirty clothes. He looked at me too. His face flushed again and again like he wanted to speak but couldn't. My own face was burning, completely out of my control. Alexander Chen's amnesia, Iris's scheme, finding Sophia and Adrian. All of it mattered, but right now somehow it felt less urgent than dealing with this basin of dirty clothes. After he fell asleep, I quietly got up in the middle of the night to handle the urgent problem. It was dark and the water was icy. I shivered as I scrubbed. I was freezing. Then I saw ripples spreading across the surface. A dark shadow seemed to dart fast beneath the water. A cold gust swept by. The hair on my legs stood up. I heard a hissing, rasping sound. Something slick and cold slid past my feet. I held my breath, not daring to move. I lowered my eyes and looked down. In the faint moonlight, I saw it clearly. A translucent green snake was gliding through the grass at my feet. It stopped beside me and hissed, its red tongue flicking. I swallowed. "Don't startle it." I pretended nothing was wrong and edged a few steps sideways. The snake still didn't react. I turned and ran. But I tripped on a stone and fell. The green snake shot toward me. Something slick, wet, and cold wrapped around my ankle. I was done for. I wasn't. Alexander Chen appeared just in time. He flung the snake back into the stream. He lifted his hand as if to touch my head. Halfway there, he seemed to catch himself and quietly pulled it back. But his voice stayed gentle, so gentle it made me want to cry. "It's okay. Don't cry." He was always soothing me, telling me not to cry. I didn't want to cry either. I tried hard to swallow my tears. He still didn't recognize me. I didn't want him to think I was fragile, weak, useless. Through my watery eyes, I suddenly noticed what was still in my hand. I hadn't had time to throw it away. He followed my gaze. A red undergarment. Water dripped from it in a steady stream. I wanted it to burst into flames and vanish on the spot. His eyes landed on it, and they seemed to catch fire too. So hot. He turned away in a panic. He stammered, "Sorry." In the end, with his back to me, he stayed while I finished washing. Aside from the terrifying snake, it was a gentle night. The stars seemed to soak into the water, blinking bright and clear. Alexander Chen, with no memory at all, had red ears and a stammer when he spoke. I was so happy. When we were eating, Iris came. She told Alexander Chen her stove was too damp and she couldn't start a fire, so she ate with us. Alexander Chen carefully picked out fish bones. He lifted a bite of fish and paused mid-air, hesitant. Iris blushed, held out her bowl, and smiled. "Alex treats me best. He knows I love fish." The bite of fish dropped into Iris's bowl. I glanced at Alexander Chen. He was looking at me too. His eyes were a little lost. I smiled softly at him and lowered my head to eat. "Alex, eat this." "Iris, eat more. You don't need to take care of me. I can—" "No, I like picking food for Alex, and I like it when Alex picks food for me. It makes the meal taste better." Annoying. Who didn't have hands? Iris was so loud, like a fly buzzing in my ear. I wanted to tell her to shut up, but Alex wasn't my Alex right now. I couldn't lose my temper. If I offended her, maybe he'd throw me out. Fine, I'd endure it. So I kept my head down and ate. But I wanted fish too. When the fish came out of the stream, it was still jumping. It must be so tender. I just didn't want to look up and watch them play at lovers. I hated it. "Oh, Alex, don't just focus on me. Pick some fish for little sis too." Iris acted like the lady of the house entertaining a guest. I was the guest. They were the hosts. A bite of fish landed in my bowl. "Eat more." Alexander Chen's voice was very soft. It was the tender meat right under the fish's eye. My favorite. He'd picked it for me. I should have been happy, but I wasn't. I felt miserable. I set the fish back into his bowl and smiled faintly. "Thanks, I'll get it myself." The light in his eyes dimmed. Iris smiled again. "Oh, it's my fault. I forgot. Men and women shouldn't touch." Was Iris going to let anyone eat in peace? I pushed my stool back and stood. "Take your time. I'm done." I was afraid that if I kept watching, I'd lose my nerve again. The carrier pigeon to Sophia had already been sent. When would she find me? Sophia had studied medicine. Maybe she could help me bring my Alex back. I walked along the stream for a while. When I figured they must be finishing up, I headed back to help clean up. When I turned around, Alexander Chen was standing not far away. Those dark eyes watched me quietly. Sometimes, those tender eyes made me hallucinate, like he remembered. I rubbed my eyelids quickly and smiled at him again. "Finished eating?" He nodded, then suddenly asked, "Was the food not to your taste?" I looked at him, confused. His gaze flicked away, awkward. He explained softly, "I saw you didn't eat much." After losing his memory, Alexander Chen cared about everyone. I shook my head and stared at the ground. "Oh, I'm not hungry." He didn't speak. I stole a glance at him. His eyes were lowered, his face dulled. He seemed unhappy. That made sense. If I cooked and someone didn't appreciate it, I'd be upset too. I hurried to soothe him. Chen, I really wasn't hungry. The food you made was delicious." His expression eased. "Then what do you want to eat tonight? I'll make more." Just that casual sentence, and all my hurt vanished. "I still want fish, the same kind as before." He smiled softly. "What else?" That smile almost made me feel like I could ask for anything. In my head, I whispered, "And don't let Iris eat with us, she's too loud." I smiled at him, nothing else. After that, we ate dinner very, very early. Because it was so early, Iris didn't come. It was just me and Alexander Chen. I ate with real appetite. Alexander Chen focused on picking out fish bones. He kept putting meat and vegetables into my bowl. I ate and smiled. When he noticed me smiling, he smiled too. He asked with a grin, "Why are you so happy?" I smiled back. "I'm just happy. Tonight's fish tastes especially good." "Then eat more. Want me to get you a bowl of soup?" "Yes, and I want another bowl of rice." "All right. Don't eat so fast. Take your time, there's plenty. It's all for you. All for you." When I heard those words, I couldn't stop myself. Tears spilled over. Alexander Chen panicked. "What's wrong? Did you get a fish bone stuck?" I shook my head hard. "No, it tasted so good," I cried. Alexander Chen accompanied Iris to town to buy supplies. I'd been in a low mood, but when Alexander Chen came back, he brought me 2 new outfits. I couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from lifting. Iris's face darkened like storm clouds. The moment she saw me, she turned away and left. Alexander Chen explained that Iris wanted new clothes. The shop had a buy-one-get-one deal, so he brought me some too. But that didn't stop me from feeling secretly happy. In town, clothes with that kind of fabric and cut were top grade. I didn't believe any shop would take a loss like that. If he forgot, then I'd make him fall in love with me again. It didn't sound so impossible anymore. I cooked Alexander Chen a meal to repay him. The steamed fish turned into charred fish. The tofu soup turned into salt water. The greens were half raw. Well, at least the rice was fine. Alexander Chen and I stared at each other. I frowned, ready to clear it away, planning to fill my stomach with walnut pastries. He stopped me. He said he'd handle it and told me to go eat the pastries first. I brought them over, wanting to eat with him, and found him eating the food. I stood in the doorway and watched him in secret. His back was to me, so I couldn't see his expression. For a moment, I had an illusion. Like my Alex had always been here. Iris panicked. "That silly girl brought me a bowl of lotus seed soup," I sighed to myself. After spending so long at my aunt's side, the most useful skill I learned was recognizing poison. In the palace, 9 out of 10 people knew how. I scooped up a spoonful and blew on it to cool it. Iris looked tense, but she couldn't hide her excitement. Then the curtain was suddenly lifted. Alexander Chen came in and called Iris out to help. As he left, he glanced at me again. His eyes fell on the lotus seed soup. That long, vicious scar was half hidden in the darkness. His voice was calm. As usual, he reminded me, "Be careful. Don't burn your mouth. Let it cool before you eat. I'll get you some sugar." Before I lost consciousness, I heard the sharp crash of the bowl hitting the floor, and hurried, stumbling footsteps. Iris wanted to harm me, so I let her. By the stream grew a wild herb called false death grass. After you eat it, you fall into a silent sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. When I woke, Alexander Chen was asleep by my bedside. Under the quilt, his hand was holding mine. He slept uneasily. His thick brows were drawn into a little mountain range. Bruised dark shadows lay under his eyes. I wanted him to be happier. I quietly touched the deep scar on his face. I leaned in and stole a kiss. He woke up. I smiled at him as if nothing had happened. Strange. After the lotus seed soup, I suddenly got so sleepy. He lowered his eyes. His thick lashes cast a soft shadow. I thought I could drive a wedge between him and Iris, but instead, I heard him say, "I'm apologizing to you for Iris. When she made the lotus seed soup, she mixed up the ingredients. She was careless. How do you want us to make it up to you?" When Iris wasn't around, I always had the illusion that my Alex had never left. But once Iris appeared, I was dragged back into reality. I could never beat her. I gently pulled my hand from his and smiled. "Oh, she meant well. I didn't die. Let's just forget it." Fairness meant nothing in the face of favoritism. I didn't even know who I was supposed to be angry at. Iris came to see me as if nothing had happened. She offered a perfunctory apology, then turned around and acted cute with Alexander Chen. She said she'd been so scared these days she couldn't sleep and she was getting ugly. Alexander Chen patted her head and said everything was fine now. They were still them, and I was still me. All at once, I missed home. I'd been gone for months. Mother must be worried sick. Father's ear must be getting twisted off by her. I sneezed. If Sophia and the others didn't come soon, I wasn't sure I could hold on. But they came. Julian Nan came too. The moment Julian arrived, he pinched my cheeks and said I'd gotten thin. There was no flesh left. I slapped his hand away and rolled my eyes at him. After his last confession failed, he'd immediately gone and confessed to other girls. We happily went back to being friends. Julian leaned in close again. "Coco, is Alexander Chen really amnesiac? Look at how he's staring at me. It's like he wants to kill me." I looked at Alexander Chen under the tree. Just as Julian said, his gaze was cold as an ice blade, fixed on Julian's hand resting on my shoulder. I was about to remove Julian's hand, but Sophia quickly grabbed me and told me, even if someone loses their memory, some instincts don't go away. If we can fully provoke those instincts, it might help Alexander Chen recover. I was completely lost. Sophia said, "Just pretend to be lovers with Julian. Give Alexander Chen a push. Didn't he used to mind you and Julian the most?" Adrian didn't agree with the idea. But we couldn't think of anything else. A dead horse had to be treated like a living one.